welcome to class today. So today we're going to start in on a large project. It will take us about a week to complete. That we're going to be looking at weapon inventory and health systems. We're going to be doing this all within the context of creating a skeet shooter, is how we'll build this. Now, some core idea reviews that we want to make sure we talk about. We've already talked about this idea of selecting a random value between a random range of one value and another. This will be important because we're going to randomly pick some rotations for our launcher. We've looked at transform direction. This converts world or local coordinates into world. This becomes important when we want to make sure that we're firing something in a forward direction in relationship to a launcher. We've already looked at iTween. We're going to be using iTween Rotate 2 to both rotate our guns up and down in our gameplay and to rotate our target launcher. Now, we've looked at rigid body.velocity quite a few times. We're going to be using this to launch the skeets, the targets, up into space. And we're also going to be using that same idea for the rocket launcher, which we've already built. So we won't cover too much of that today. You should already know how to do that. Raycasting, we're going to be using raycasting weapons here. Basically, the idea is that in this project, we're going to bring together a lot of the ideas that we've used in past projects all together. And finally, the idea of health systems. The targets that we shoot out, there's going to be multiple targets. They're going to have different speeds and they're going to have different health so that they take different amounts of damage as you're trying to take them down. Now, the new things that we're going to be looking at in this project is that we're going to be creating a random target launcher. Basically, it might use random wait times, but specifically we're going to be building arrays, which is a specific type of variable that can hold multiple game objects in one variable array, so that each time you play the game, it will fire a different target at different times. The player will be able to access multiple weapons, swapping weapons either with the mouse scroll or their keyboard selection. And then importantly, each of these weapons are going to have ammo that we'll be able to see in the UI. Now, all of this ammo will have auto reload. It'll be timed though, so the more powerful weapons take longer to reload. We're going to work with establishing target health on those targets. And some important things that we'll be covering here is who's talking to that health, because it will be different if we're using the rocket launcher than if we're using, say, a raycast weapon. And each of these weapons will have a different amount of damage they can do. Some important things that we're going to look at that are new include importing packages. I don't think we've imported packages in any of our past projects, so we'll look at that. This is especially important because Unity has done some weird things with standard assets now in 2019. And we're going to talk about a new idea called Booleans, which basically is we can create a variable that's a Boolean that something is either true or false. We're going to use it as kind of a switch. We're going to check if something's true. If that Boolean is true, then do the work. If that Boolean is false, then don't. We're going to do this in the context of a kind of modified skeet shooter. In real life, skeet shooting it fires these kind of clay pigeons, pull, and these go flying off, and then somebody with a shotgun shoots them out of the air. For us, we're going to be working with much more stylized. We'll have multiple weapons, a pistol, a rocket launcher, and a pigeon-seeking missile. The UI will be down here on the bottom. The launcher will be over here, and it'll shoot these pigeons out. I think we've got a chicken, a condor, and a dragon. You'll keep track of the score and the high score. And you may choose to use a timer if you want. Now you can, this is a screenshot of a student's project that you can actually download and play on the forums. This will show you, he built kind of a blocky play, although you can use just a standard output as well if you'd like. The basic mechanics of the game are going to go like this. Number one, there's going to be an intro screen to establish the rules. There will be 3 weapons: six-shooter, the rocket launcher, and a pigeon-seeking missile. All the weapons will have limited ammo and an auto reload mechanism. The target launcher will shoot random targets. You can either use random or regular intervals for that. Each of the targets, each of the pigeons, is going to have a different health and a different point value. So if you take down the fast-moving, high-health target, you get more points than if you take down the slow-moving chicken, say. The game will keep track of the score and the high score, and there'll be sound everywhere. The game over screen will, of course, show the score, the high score, and allow the player to quit or play again. Finally, it's going to be important that this late in the semester that this game is balanced, that it doesn't just work, but that you've increased the speed, for instance, of the targets, or you've decreased the amount of damage each of the guns do, so that the game is fun to play but difficult to master. It's kind of the hallmark of good games. So we want to make sure that I can't get the high score the first time I play, or that anybody can get the high score the first time that they play. That instead, it's fun to play, it's fun to get into, but difficult to be the champion at. Okay, so let's look at how to work with this inside of Unity. This is a brand new project, so I've created a new project that I've called Skeet Shooter. Now, we know that some of the things that we're going to want to have in here are going to be iTween and standard assets. Now, if we actually search for iTween, then iTween should pop right up, and there's no problem. You should be able to download and import iTween without a problem. Now, we're kind of caught in a strange time here. Unity has been threatening for quite a while to revamp their standard assets project. And they have finally made good on that. And so what's happened is that their old standard assets no longer appears in the asset store. This is frustrating. Unity will I'm sure, have an updated version of this, but it's kind of irritating that they don't currently have it. This is the way we're going to get around that for now until they do update it. In the turn-in thread, there's quite a few assets to download here. One of them is, I've actually got a link that you can download the old standard assets package. Now, this is a fairly large package, 183 megs, so give it a chance to download. While we're at it, make sure you download the UI elements. Go ahead and download this other Unity package worth of projects. It's called Free Low Poly Animal Unity package. This is a package of assets that is also from the asset store. You can go ahead and start that. And then there's also the contents of this folder that are all of our weapons and the target launcher. I'm going to get all those started so that they're actually in our project. Okay, now what will happen here is that if we look at the standard assets, I'm going to just find it in my folder so I can see where that's at. That standard assets is going to be it's going to show up as a Unity package file so that you can see it there. Now, the ways that we can download or import this into Unity are fairly simple, but it works best if you do it this way. Come up to the Assets pull-down menu, Import Package, and a Custom Package. Now, in that custom package, now I can go to the Downloads folder, and there should be my standard assets. I'll go ahead and bring in standard assets, and that will bring this file in. Now this takes a while to import, so I'll go ahead and pause the tutorial here while that imports and decompresses. All right, once the standard assets has imported, you're going to see a collection of errors here. Go ahead and hit clear. Remember that we can just get rid of a few of these. I'm going to go ahead and delete the scripts that are causing trouble. These are part of the reason why Unity is stopped using the standard assets and is going to build a new one. But as this finishes compiling, compile, every time make sure you hit the clear, and that'll start to clear things up. Okay, so I've got the standard assets here. At the plugins, I've got my iTween imported as well. Now, while we're at it, I'm going to go ahead and import the low poly animals and our other assets that might be needed here. So again, same process, assets, import package, custom package. I've downloaded those animals, so I'll go ahead and import those. Bunch of stuff here, just go ahead and click on import. This will import these assets into another folder here. That folder we're going to access much later. While we're at it, then I'm going to go ahead and bring in those FBX files that I've downloaded as well. So there's the PSM, there's the pistol, RPG, target launcher, and then with each of these we need to make sure that we again extract the textures. So let's make a folder called textures. And extract the materials that I'm also just going to put in the textures folder. PSM, we'll do the same thing. The RPG, we'll do the same thing. And finally, with the target launcher, extract the textures and extract the materials. Okay, so let's look at each of these, make sure that I've got stuff in there. All right, that one's just colors, and this one's got our sets there. Okay, so we're all set up to start to build this out. Now we're going to use some of the standard asset in the prototyping package to start to build out our level. So I'm going to come into the prototyping into the prefabs folder. And then as you look here, there's a bunch of floors. There's a really big floor here that's 64 by 64 units big that I'll go ahead and bring into the scene. Now, once I've got this big level into the scene, I can also come in and let's get rid of this main camera and instead bring in our character, first-person character prefabs first-person controller. Now in this game we actually don't want to be able to walk around, we're just going to hold still, but this will give us a lot of scripts that do our mouse control and things like that. So once I've got this in here, I can come in and tell its walk speed, for instance, to be 0, its run speed to be 0, its jump speed to be 0, so that if I play the game I'll be sitting still. As I use my WAS and D, I'm not going to be able to move around, but I will be able to look around, which is what I'm after. All right, the final thing that we'll do to set this up is I'm going to grab hold of my target launcher and I'm going to set it up on the other side of our gameplay area. Now you can build this a little bit differently if you want to get more interesting output, then you can. I'm also going to take my target launcher. It looks like the way that I've got this set up is that it's facing the wrong direction, so I'll go ahead and rotate mine 180 degrees. If your character is on the other side, then that's what will happen. If you end up with these really heavy shadows, go ahead and make sure to come into the lighting settings, and in the lighting settings click on auto generate. And that will give us a little bit brighter output here as it bakes in the soft lighting. Okay, so several things about this target launcher that become important to notice is that I've done some work on this before it came in. Number one, there's this turret base that is, you look here, it rotates around that axis, around its around the Y. And then it's got this launcher base that's clear down here that we won't rotate, but a child of the turret base is this surface that we can rotate along the x-axis. What it means is that I'll be able to rotate this with a script to rotate that into place, and then rotate this part so that it rotates up, and then we'll have it actually launch something. Now, also important to note is the target launcher. If I look at this by hitting the W key to use the translate tool, is that the Z, the positive Z is out the front. This will mean that we can use transform dot vector 3 forward to give it some distance. So the first thing that I want to do is have this thing so that it randomly rotates to a location, waits for a certain amount of time, then randomly rotates to another location. So to do this, I'm going to make a new C# script that I'm going to call, okay, so target launcher script. All right, so we need to know that this is the base and the launcher. So I want to make sure that this script makes it knows both of those. So let's make a public game object called launcher base, and let's make another one called launcher. Now, what we want to do is when we start, we're going to be waiting a certain amount of time and then rotating to a certain amount and then launching it. Since we know we're going to wait, we know that we need to make an IEnumerator. So we'll make an IEnumerator that we're going to call, let's call random rotation. It doesn't really matter. All right, so what we'll do here is what we'll do is we'll yield return new wait for seconds, and let's go ahead and wait for, let's say 1 second to start with. And then we're going to start creating the actual rotation. So to do this, we'll go ahead and build this using iTween. Because we want to make sure that we're using local space here, we're going to use our iTween hash tables. Hash tables. So I'm going to use iTween.rotate2. The first thing I want to rotate is that launcher base. And let's use iTween.hash. And then let's go ahead and come in here. Now I can start to look at the rotations that I actually want to do here. So the base here, I know that I want to rotate along the Y. So let's say that I'm going about -30 to probably +30, just to make sure that's symmetrical. So I know that I'm going to need to rotate this to a random value between those. So let's create a float that we're going to call random base rotation. And then let's put in random base rotation a value that is between the random.range of -30 and 30. All right, so now we want to make sure that that's rotating along the y-axis. So we can say here in y, I want you to rotate to whatever random base rotation is. Now I can tell it, let's use for time, let's say 1 second. And then we want to importantly use this idea of is local. Make sure that we set this as true. Is local means that since we rotated the whole object around 180 degrees, then it's using the values in the local direction. If I were to move this out of target launcher, then its world rotation is already 180. So we'll set that to be true, and let's use an ease type of spring. Spring gives it, spring will give it a little bit of, I like the look of the animation there. Okay, so let's see if we can get that part to work. So I'll go ahead and save that. Let's go ahead and start the coroutine here that will be random rotation. So it goes ahead and fires that up. And now when I come back over here, now I can store this script kind of anywhere because the script is actually going to be reaching out and identifying those two things. So I'm going to make an empty game object that I'm going to call script holder. The script holder doesn't have to be at 0, 0, 0 in world space. I just like to clean it up a little bit like that. And I'm going to go ahead and put my target launcher script on that script holder. So this needs to know what the base is, so we'll put the base in there, and it needs to know where the launcher is, and we'll put that launcher in there. But what should happen now is that if everything works like it should, then when we play this, then this ought to rotate to some random value. All right, so pretty exciting. All it's done is just move that once. So I want to make sure that this continues to do this work, kind of continues to run. So to do this, I'm going to make something called a Boolean. So I'm going to use a Boolean here that we're going to call game is playing. idea is that as long as this Booleans can be either true or false, as long as this Boolean is functioning, then we'll go ahead and do some work. So I'll put all of this inside of a while statement that I'll just say while game is playing, then go ahead and do all of this work. And so what this will do is it will keep looping as long as that game is playing Boolean is true. So if I save that, come back over here, let's compile, and what you'll see here is now on the target launcher script there is this new game is playing. Now notice that it's false. So I'm going to turn that on to start with, but when I hit play, then what will happen is that this will rotate, wait for a second, rotate, wait for a second, rotate, wait for a second, rotate. So it looks like it keeps moving through there. So I want to make sure that this probably waits for this animation to finish before it starts it over again. So let's go ahead and I'm going to put this statement right back here, paste it another time since I'm using 1 second there, so that it actually, let's use 2 seconds before it starts the process over again. Okay, so let's save that, give it one more try. So rotate, wait 2 seconds, rotate, wait 2 seconds, rotate, wait 2 seconds, rotate, wait 2 seconds. Okay, so let's use the same idea, but we're going to do that for the launcher. So here, all of this information is pretty good method. So let's just go ahead and copy and paste that into here. And this is going to be random launcher rotation. And then let's go ahead and put that here. We need to find out what this value should do. So anywhere between, let's look at the launcher, between 0 where it's firing straight at us and let's say, I don't know, 25. We might change that later. But so let's go between 0 and 25. Was it positive 25? No, negative 25. So negative 25. So here we're not going to do the launcher base. We'll do the launcher. And it's going to rotate to this random launcher value. And we'll do same 1 second, ease type spring, all the rest of that will happen. So it waits for a second. It's going to rotate both of these things to a random rotation, wait for 2 seconds. Because we don't want to rotate it in Y, we want to rotate it in X. Dirt. Okay. Let's give this a try again. So wait for a second. Wait for 2 seconds. Poof, fires a Skeet. Poof, fires a Skeet. Poof, fires a Skeet. Okay. All right. Okay, let's get to that point. We're running about 20-25 minutes on this tutorial. In the next section of the tutorial, we'll look at how to set it up so that it actually fires something as we go.